Good afternoon, and welcome to our virtual conversation about recent climate survey. Today is geared towards our students, your experiences and ideas about building a more inclusive culture here at UCF. I am Kent Butler, Interim Chief Equity and Inclusion Diversity Officer here, and I appreciate you all for joining us. I will be moderating our conversation, but am joined by several of my colleagues and students from across the university to discuss the survey results and have more important dialogue with you all focused on action. The past several months have been very challenging for our community and for those of us who are just in this fight. And it's important for us to talk about these issues that have impacted us all. And we want to see what we can do moving forward. The conversation we have today will help in the creation of a new university-wide diversity, equity, and inclusion action plan that President Cartwright announced earlier this summer. My goal is for us to have a productive conversation, informed comments by those of you who have heard from those previous conversations that we've had already. You'll be able to see what we want to do. But today, it's really wants to have a time for students to really share their voices and talk about those things that are of concern to them. Before I start and share you the survey results, I would like to talk to you a little bit about who's here on the panel. And so in introductions, I will start with Dr. Leanne Roberts, who is the Interim Director of Diversity and Inclusion in the College of Engineering and Computer Sciences. Dr. Devin Jensen, Associate Dean in the College of Graduate Studies. Commander Pablo Vargas from the UCF Police Department. Dr. Edwana Andrews, Interim Assistant Vice President and Director of Social Justice and Advocacy. Dr. Cynthia Muniz, Director of HSI Culture and Partnerships. Dr. Adam Meyer, Director of Student Accessibility Services and Inclusive Education Services. Stephanie Blanco, she's a Student Government Vice President and Senior majoring in Political Science. Noreen Kaleja, a first-generation Filipino American and double major in Legal Studies and International Global Studies. Noreen is a student senator from CCIE and serves on the executive board for UCF's Asian Pacific American Coalition. Andrew Adams, a transgender activist and member of Student Senate LGBTQ+ Caucus and LGBTQ Services Lavender Council. Edgar Carrasco Acosta, a first-generation graduate student in public administration, a DACA recipient, and 2020 Access Peer Mentor. Dominic Davis, a senior in business and professional communications and the second vice president for UCF's NAACP chapter. And last but not least, Leah Freeman, a junior in interdisciplinary studies with a focus on art and commerce with many campus roles, including president of the Men of Integrity, historian of the Black Student Union, brother of the Nu Chi chapter of Alpha Kappa Psi, professional business fraternity, and an office assistant for social justice and advocacy. It's a phenomenal group of students, and we're so happy to be able to have them to join us here today. Also listening in today will be President Cartwright and Provost Michael Johnson. And I'm going to turn the floor over to President Cartwright for a few words.
Thank you, Dr. Butler, and I just want to reiterate our thanks to all of you for attending and participating in this important conversation. We're going to talk today, of course, about our climate, and we're going to think about what that means for all of us. I often think about our creed, where we talk about integrity, scholarship, creativity, community, and excellence. And when you look at those, you realize there are two key things in there, that is community and integrity. They go hand in hand. It's how we treat each other. It's how we build a community. It's how we become better. And yes, I have a good friend of mine who likes to talk about the fact that when you create an environment, when you create a culture, You want a culture that is for all and that everybody can succeed. James White, who was CEO of Jamba Juice, talks a lot about this, our need to change our culture and to create such a culture where everybody feels welcome, everybody can excel, and that makes everybody better in the process. That's what this conversation is about today, is how do we move forward as an institution? How do we enable ourselves to really commit to our creed and have excellence in everything that we do? And that includes excellence in how we respect and how we treat each other, how we create an environment that is inclusive and that brings out the best in everybody at this institution. That's what we need to commit to. It's in my president's goals. It's going to be in the goals of this institution. It's going to be in the goals of where we move forward collectively. And I think there's such an importance in us doing this now when we have a pandemic going on, and clearly many of us are suffering in many different ways. When we have horrific violence that we see across the country, when we see injustices that are built on a historical inequity in our society, we need to change that. We need to be that point that starts moving us into the future, and we need to do better as an institution. So I hope that what we can do is come together, work together, realize that we need to care about each other, and it's that compassion and caring for each other that's going to help us to get through this and to continue to move forward and make this institution a much better institution. A university for all, a university that provides access to incredible opportunity, and a university that I hope you will be able to say is the university for you. And so thank you for being here. And I'm going to be here today. I'm going to be what you consider an active listener, someone who's going to be really trying to soak in all of the information that you're going to give me. And I thank you for being part of this important conversation. It's going to help us to make this institution a much better place. And thank you to all of our students for continuing to show the leadership that I've seen since I've been here. And I'm always so inspired by all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cartwright. I really appreciate it. And I also thank the provost for being a part of these conversations as well. We're going to get started with the PowerPoint on some of the survey results. In mid-spring, early this year, UCF asked all students, faculty, and staff to participate in the climate survey to help measure perceptions and inform our planning around campus diversity and inclusion. It was my hope that we would be able to find answers to some of the issues that have been plaguing the university for some time now. Often we hear people saying that we talk about doing things, but there was never any action. So the purpose of this was to bring us to a plan so that we can move forward to kind of do what we needed to do on campus in terms of inclusion and diversity. We contacted Viewfinder Campus Climate Surveys, and they developed and conducted this survey for us. Viewfinder was created by Insight into Diversity magazine and is used at universities across the country. The survey was used to measure our overall climate here at UCF, how welcoming UCF is, work and learning experiences that people are having here at UCF, personal experiences of discrimination, bias, and harassment. A campus diversity plan was to be developed from this survey, and we looked at safety on campus and in our surrounding community. Next slide, please. So the survey results were interesting at best. So we got about 15.8, 60% of the faculty to respond. 23% of our staff responded, and just under 2% of our students. And we realized that there were some issues with that. One of the things that we did notice is that it happened at the beginning of this pandemic, that we were looking at going remote, and there were a lot of things changing on our campus. We were also in the middle of a president search, as well as we were looking at finding the students being away at spring break. And so those things, I believe, were a part of some of the reasons why we didn't get the type of numbers that we would have liked, but still rich information. We are very happy for those who were able to participate and be a part of this. And so we collected all this information with the hopes of just really finding out what we can do to make a better impact on the inequities of what was happening with the pandemic and what was happening on our college campus. While the numbers were slow and small, we definitely know that the narratives that come from this are going to be rich and they will help us to move forward. As President Cartwright has said, becoming more inclusive requires us to be honest about where we are as an institution and where we want to go. You don't get better unless you hold yourself up to a mirror and take a hard look at our challenges. And so with that, we'll go on to the next slide. So before I unpack this, I just want to let you know that the UCF Creed is really an integral part of what we're trying to do here at UCF, especially with regards to the survey information that was coming out. And we want this creed to guide us really and to help us as we establish our values moving forward. I want you to pay particular attention to the community part. It says, I will promote an open and supportive campus environment by respecting the rights and contributions of every individual. And it's important for us to recognize that and for us to hold each other accountable, as well as figuring it all out. How do we live together here on this campus and do right by each other? Next slide, please. So the next couple of slides I'm going to show you are about the students' responses to the survey. And because it was a lower rate, we can't generalize this information to every student on campus, but it really does give us some kind of indication of where the students sit. Students are overwhelmingly satisfied with the learning experiences here at UCF. We also saw a majority of positive responses around students recommending UCF to other students, or that their faculty created welcoming experiences for them in the classroom. About 3/4 of the respondents felt safe among their students that they worked with and that they had classroom experiences with, and they felt that they can express their views and that they would be accepted. It was alarming to see the high percentage of those who did not agree or did not know that they felt a great sense of belonging. And that causes us to some concern in terms of how do we reach out to those students who don't feel that way. There's something to be said about that. Because of this, I'm developing a student advisory council. And this council is to help me kind of look at what UCF is all about. It's entitled right now, the Odyssey Ambassadors. And what I want to do with this is have them advise me and also to provide training for them to be able to facilitate conversations around diversity and inclusion on campus with their peers. And there also will be ambassadors for ODI programming. Next slide, please. This slide provides further takeaways from the student responses. And if you look at this, you'll see that diversity in their coursework, feelings that they will be heard, and whether they believe leaders are held accountable, and that multiculturalism is at the core, or some of the highlights that come from this, and that we're going to be taking some lessons from the students. Students validate the importance of multiculturalism and diversity, but fewer than half agree that their voices will be heard or that their leaders are being held accountable for the way that the campus climate has been created and where it's going. Next slide, please. Our survey also found that UCF is perceived by our employees and our students to be more welcoming to certain groups compared to others. You can see that there are several groups that faculty and staff felt that are not welcomed here on campus. And these are some very high rates. African Americans, people with disabilities, people from the Middle East, Muslims, and undocumented students. While not displayed on the screen, our students' responses show very similar trends in rates. I want to point out the increasing rate of I do not know responses and as you move down the row. I find that this is telling that folks don't know definitively how they feel or how they see others feeling on this campus when it comes to being welcomed or feeling that they belong. Next slide, please. So this slide looks at some of the negative experiences that are happening on campus. Among our students, a little over half said they have not witnessed or experienced discrimination, bias, or harassment, including illegal activity, bullying, relationships, or sexual violence, stalking, or retaliation. Although a majority of these respondents, 56% by what we have in our data, said that they knew where to report an incident at UCF, less than 1 in 7 said that they did. And when they did, however, typically they reported it to a faculty member, the UCF police, or to a friend. The right-hand side of the screen shows the reasons that students said they did not report, which in a time like this that we are here and where we're encouraging each of us to speak out and to have their voices heard, the efforts of the UCF environment is to take and improve the way that we are reporting these issues and our awareness of these measures all along. It's important for us to see that we are making sure that everybody feels as though they have a place to go and to share these types of concerns that they have, and that something will happen because of it, that it just won't sit in some office space and not have anybody seriously take any types of considerations into it. Next slide, please. Here you'll see the link to the actual surveys. So those of you who are able, I ask you to go to this link and you'll be able to find past conversations that we've had on this, as well as the 3 reports and a comparison report of our data. From this point forward, we are definitely going to be moving towards having an opportunity to do the work now. We're going to put the talking aside and we're going to set up action as our next alternative to creating a better environment for UCF. And so with that, I'm going to transition over into our conversation with our panel. So as you all know, if you've been a part of this before, we have an opportunity for you all as our guests to kind of raise your hand and to talk and come on screen and share your points of view. So please use that feature. You'll see it, raise your hand, and we will get to you as soon as we can to have you have an opportunity to speak. You can also just type a question in the Q&A if you feel that that's where you would like to have your responses responded to. We will do our best to answer your question, but if we don't, we will do our best to get to you and let you know. You can do this anonymously or you can put your name. Just know that if you put your name and we can't get to your question, we'll do our best to get to you as soon as possible. And should something happen where you know of someone who is not able to get in, please direct them to the UCF YouTube channel and let them know that they can reach us or see us from that perspective. And with that, that is at events.ucf.edu. So if anything comes up, please make sure that you let them know that. But before we go to the panelists, I just want to reiterate, we want to hear from you all. So the panelists are going to do a great job, but those of you who are in the audience right now, we also want to hear your voices, and we want to take really good pride in the fact that you want to come on and let us know where UCF's direction should be moving forward. So with that, let me go to the first question. This is to our student panelists. Much of today's conversation will be focused on an idea of sharing and action. I would like to start with a question directed to you all students with regards to the climate survey. Fewer than half the students who responded felt that there was an effective process to make their voices heard. Do you agree? And what can we do to elevate the student voices and student-led action? Andrew, how about you? Why don't you start this question for us?
Sure, thank you, Dr. Butler. Yeah, communication, especially on a campus this large, is always going to be an issue. It's almost impossible with as many students as we serve to fully ensure that everyone can have their voice heard for every thing that comes up. So I guess the best way to handle that is just to have as many open means of communication available for students so that they can literally open up their phone, find 5 different ways to reach out, see on campus another couple ways to reach out. The more we put ourselves out there, the more students will have access to us and access to communication.
Andrew, what's your go-to? What's your go-to for information?
Personally, I like Instagram, but that's just me.
So tell me why Instagram.
Honestly, I have ADHD. I like to look at things.
Okay.
So I like seeing the UCF social media with all of our, yellow and black different posts. It works for my brain to get information that way.
Thank you, thank you. How about Leah or Edgar? What are some of your thoughts?
I personally believe that there is a lot of student-led action. I would like to see the faculty come out to student-led events more, specifically within the minority organizations. I know it can get hard with your guys' schedules and stuff to be out there, but we can always send events to you guys and you guys can try to make an appearance. I know for me, I'm always on Twitter. I follow all UCF accounts from Twitter because that's where I go to for updates. I will always see it there. So yeah. So
what was my last Twitter? Never mind. I'm just kidding there. Go ahead.
I definitely agree with both of them, and I definitely, like Andrew said, I definitely think if we had a certain place online, especially right now with COVID, where students can reach out and put in a question or a comment and say hey, I think this is an issue. I think this is something we need to focus on. It's a lot easier for faculty to be able to reach out. And definitely Instagram, I follow all the pages on there. And I feel like if we promote that when students are coming into UCF, I feel like once, if you're a freshman and you're seeing it right away, you follow the pages, you're always going to stay up to date through your whole undergraduate career.
Excellent, excellent. So I'm going to go to Noreen and Dominic, and then I'm going to follow up last with Stephanie, okay? All right, so Noreen.
Thank you so much for having me as one of the panelists today. I think that in order to elevate student voices and student-led action, it is important that conversations and discussions like this must shift from faculty staff-led to student-led. I think it's important that students need to feel more comfortable sharing the stories that you don't typically hear, whether it be from student government or from different departments and agencies we have on campus. It's not easy to create structures that allow all student voices to be heard, but inviting students to conversations like this and having them lead that discussion is a big stepping stone to build a more inclusive community at UCF. Especially when many of the student panelists today are from the different coalitions at UCF that advocates for political and social changes affecting their ethnic and cultural communities.
So let me ask you really quickly, do you have the list of questions that I have that I'm going to be asking you all?
Mm-hmm.
Noreen, I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you right now. You want to lead? I will give you the next question to ask.
No, it's okay. It's all on you, Dr. Butler.
No. I want to share. I want to share and share beautifully with everyone. All right. Dominic, what's going on with you?
Hi guys. Pretty much I agree with everyone else in terms of the constant communication and being on those platforms like social media. But one thing I'd say in terms of the constant communication would be having it a little more frequent, not wait till it gets to points like this to where we have to have those conversations. And then now everyone's speaking from emotions rather than them actually experiencing things. So I'd say more so frequent, like every other semester or every few weeks, however that plays out. So
nice. I agree. I appreciate that. And I think that's something that we have definitely in the works. And going back to what Noreen said, I will share with you that that's one of the purposes of the Odyssey Ambassador Program that I'm going to be putting forward, is to have ambassadors to kind of do this type of work, to be the facilitators of the types of things that are going forward, to lead these conversations. So I'm looking forward to any student who's interested in being a part of that, to do that. I know that President Cartwright is also doing a leadership program or an advisory committee for himself to hear from the different voices on campus as well. And so it's really an engaged effort by all of us to hear from you all and to recognize that the reason why we're here is because of you. And so if we don't hear your voices, how do we make sure that we are doing the best that we can by you? And so Stephanie, as the VP of SGA, what words of wisdom do you have?
I think all the students in this panel have said it best. I completely agree with everyone that having constant and open communication is key, as well as being open to have these conversations frequently, you know. And I think another important thing to think about is giving students these resources to have this open conversation, you know, or constant communication with not only student government, but, you know, the Office of Diversity and Inclusion and just other departments around campus, just to make sure that students feel comfortable in coming to us with anything.
Right. So one of the things that came out of the survey is the students were saying they need the need for more community, right? They want more trust building, and specifically with underrepresented groups. So let me hear from you all, the students again, and let me know, what initiatives have you seen that have worked, and what else would you like to see UCF do moving forward? Go ahead, Dominic.
Yeah, so I'd say the Juneteenth event was something that definitely made us feel a little bit more welcome, considering the time that we were in. We were away from campus and we were in the middle of the pandemic. So the Juneteenth event gave us a little bit to like putting our mind at ease. So I definitely think that initiative was something that we looked at it and we appreciated it from especially like Black UCF.
Could you explain a little bit before you go on, what is Juneteenth, so that everybody knows what you were talking about when you said the Juneteenth event?
So Juneteenth is the day that we were set free as like slaves. So like the Black, like African Americans. So it's basically a celebration that we celebrate to just basically celebrate our freedom and like just us being us, I guess. And then something to go into that as well to follow up as something else that you guys can look forward to like pursuing would be culture and diversity courses for faculty and staff, especially in terms of like representing like the underrepresented, because with the Charles Nagy situation, I think we're still a little on edge about that, because for us who are coming back to campus, it's still a little unsettling to know that some of our professors may not even be on the same page as us, and to fight what we're fighting now and then to step on the campus, it's a little like unsettling. So I definitely say that's something that we can offer faculty and staff and student diversity courses.
And thank you for sharing that, because I think that is a very real sense, right? Because we're dealing with life on campus. And so life doesn't preclude us because we're on a college campus. You know, we have to deal with the same things that are happening in society as a whole. And like you say, the issue with Nagy is something that is kind of a part of our culture right now that we're dealing with. And hopefully it will be resolved in a way that we all can be satisfied, but at the same time, it's something that we have to deal with. Others on the panel, what are some of your thoughts? I thought I saw Leah wanted to say something.
I know I was on a very earlier call with President Cartwright, Dr. Edwana Andrews, and other Black student leaders where we sent in a list of initiatives. And I do want to say I am very impressed with the response of that, because I know there is work with getting diversity courses, minority space. I know one of the things I was very concerned about was getting equal Greek representation, because I saw like there's on-campus Greek housing, but we only have a plaque in the student union for the Divine Nine. So something like putting up flags in the breezeway to represent D9. But honestly, I have seen work from being on the inside with the initiatives being taken care of, and I'm very impressed. So that's my answer.
And so also to add to that, there's space that is becoming available over in ODI that we're going to have for underrepresented groups who don't have that office space. So we're looking at kind of capitalizing on that as well. So things are looking up. We're trying to make some changes and to support and help you all. And that's from hearing your voices that helps make this happen. So that's really good. I thought I saw Noreen wanting to say something. And maybe not. I thought I saw you getting ready to move. Any other students want to answer that question?
I was gonna say the MAS office, the Multicultural Academic Support Services, also has this like yearly MAS conference that I was lucky to be able to be part of, and that was life-changing for me as an undergrad student. It really opened up my eyes to see that there is more inclusion at UCF, and it really made you feel like a knit community. I got to make a lot of connections through that, and I definitely love the idea of that. I know right now with COVID, it can be a little different, but I definitely think we can work on like an online forum or an online chat to be able to reach out to the students and give them like an online version of that, because it did make a big impact.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So Stephanie, I have a question for you. I understand that the student government is working on a campaign against discrimination and racism. Can you talk a little bit about it and how students can get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I answer the question, I think Noreen wanted to say something really quickly. If you
Okay.
to Noreen.
I just wanted to bring up the fact that student government itself even created the launch of 5 different caucuses that center the voices of minority student populations and the issues they face. And then the fact that, you know, student advisory councils are being created, whether it be for President Cartwright or for you, Dr. Butler, but there's still a missing component when it comes to initiatives because if you really would like to know more on how to amplify the voices of students and underrepresented groups, we have to talk about how these conversations and discussions and initiatives are not being brought up during the Board of Trustees meetings. None of the conversations I've had with you, Dr. Butler, with you, Dr. Cartwright, Dr. Andrews, Dr. Ehas too, she's not here, but was never brought up during their meetings. None of the initiatives created within the university was brought up either. I watched a few of their recorded meetings and there was no acknowledgement of student leaders. There was no acknowledgement of Black student leaders. There was no acknowledgement of Asian student leaders, no acknowledgement of the LGBTQ plus leaders, nor the Hispanic leaders during these Board of Trustees meetings. And I think we have to understand that their meetings are long, I get that, but they have a lot to go through. But these are people that take on everything from reviewing academic programs to raising funds for the institution. And they work with with Dr. Cartwright, President Cartwright, and then top administrators to approve our, major policies and plans. But the Board of Trustees should not only acknowledge our concerns as students, but to also respond to us and acknowledge us too.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's really important because I think that you're talking about real time. And so we've had this discussion. You and I know that we spoke a couple of weeks ago. And so when these types of things are happening, when you see a Board of Trustees meeting and you don't see those types of conversations happening, you just are not, you have that mindset that you just shared. I know that President Cartwright has, what you see on camera and what you see off camera is also, I think, important to talk about. When we're having lunch with the Board of Trustee members, or we're doing other things to kind of support what's happening on campus. So those conversations are happening, but I guess what we need to also recognize is there needs to be some sense of transparency when those types of conversations are happening as well, because getting on the docket is really what you're talking about. How do we get onto the agenda of that meeting to talk about the things that you're talking about? So let me go to the question that Stephanie had. Tell us about the things that are happening through SGA.
Absolutely. So student government is in the process of planning a campaign against race-based discrimination. It's called #StandTogether, and we want to promote this hopefully beginning in October. And what the campaign stands for is basically to spread awareness on kind of any race-based discrimination or any hate crimes that go on campus. So we hope to kind of create a one-stop shop for students to kind of have all those resources, CAPS, ODI, the integrity line, basically how to for the integrity line, just giving those students those resources to have if they experience any race-based discrimination or any hate crimes. And we also kind of want to do an educational portion for it as well. So we want to partner up with different RSOs, and hopefully, every single month we have a topic or an issue that has been brought up, and those RSOs as well as student government can kind of host those educational workshops for students.
Excellent, excellent. So let me reiterate that if you would like to talk or have a conversation and you're in the audience, please raise your hand and we will get to you. One such person is Vincent Marcucci. So Vincent, I see that you're out there. Come on in, and what do you have to share with us?
One moment. All right, can you guys hear me and see me all right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Hey there, my name is Vincent. I'm a student at UCF in my last year here. I just wanted to hop in on one of the conversations about possible resources going forward. So one of the things I saw this summer was from, it was a resource from the Alberta Civil Liberties Research Center. and it is the Calgary Anti-Racism Education course, and it's just kind of a course that's not, so we've talked about like cultural diversity and racial diversity and courses on that for professors or for any faculty or students as well. But I think a focus in anti-racism would really be helpful during this time. So this course, and I can put it in the Q&A or in the chat to be passed on, so you can like, it's a pretty step-by-step course that goes through, and it is a lot of self-work, so it takes time. You know, it's not necessarily something that you just take a course and then boom, you're done.
Right.
But talks about, you know, white privilege into recognizing the discrimination and the power of racism and what happens when you can, like, when you wield that power in like an evil way. So yeah, I just wanted to hop in and throw that in. Thank you, guys.
Well, tell me a little bit about your experience with that. So you took it, and what did you learn from it? What do you think has changed in you from going through that experience?
Yeah, there was definitely one. I mean, there were like a few things that popped out to me, but definitely one of them was the understanding that there isn't really such a thing as like this idea of reverse racism. You know, that really racism is like defined by discrimination with power, and so kind of learning about that and you know what that means to have power in this current time, to like power in your words, like really what communication, how it can bring communities down, was I think effective for me. And there was, you know, going through the white privilege course, like lesson, that portion was really eye-opening too. And I think those were a couple of things that stuck out to me. But it really, in this case, after taking that course, I really wanted to share that with any community that that I work around. And now I'm including it in my work I work at the UCF Arboretum, and we are looking to implement new practices in our hiring of interns and student staff going forward.
Thank you. I appreciate your advocacy and I appreciate your action. And so it's one of the things that I think comes from those types of opportunities is you learn about yourself and you learn how to become more active in terms of helping to make change. And so, Vincent, I appreciate that, and we'll definitely take that under consideration. And if you could put it in the chat, we would really appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to go on to the next question. And before I go on to the next question, I'm going to also just shout out to those of you who are still in the audience. If there's something that you want to share or you want to bring up to us, please raise your hand and we'll get to you, or put your question into the chat, or not the chat, the question and answer period. And we'll go from there. So Dominic, Noreen, and anyone else who want to answer this question, here's a question for you. While the majority of students say they're satisfied with their faculty, we know that we can do and must do more to improve student and faculty relationships. What are some steps do you think we can take towards kind of improving those relationships? And yes, Noreen.
I can start, but so within the Asian Pacific Islander community at UCF, there's actually a lack of student and faculty relationship. One major problem is that there's no UCF faculty and staff association dedicated to our Asian American students. We have the Black faculty staff, we have the Latino faculty staff, and even the Pride faculty staff, yet there's not one for Asian Americans. Asian Americans do not have that voice to represent their needs and concerns as students. And additionally, when it comes to programs and events, we only see the ones created from registered student organizations on campus. And within the different departments or agency, there's only one event dedicated to our culture, which is held by the Multicultural Student Center once a year. We do not have a faculty and staff to share our cultures within the community at UCF, as well as to guide us on our academic career. So establishing an Asian faculty and staff association is very essential for Asian American students. And on top of that, many student leaders with minoritized identities who work unpaid to improve their institutions and address institutional oppression, such as the student leaders now here, like Leah Freeman, me, Andrew Adams, Dominique. are met with fatigue and burnout, all while unable to engage in educationally beneficial college experiences. A student should have the privilege of just being a student. It is not the job of minority students to be meeting with several or multiple educators and administration to talk about how can we be more diverse and inclusive to our different communities at UCF. Thank you.
Great, great. How about the other students? Andrew, Dominic. Go ahead, Dominic.
I'd say having selected faculty or staff members like participate with certain orgs in terms of like representation purposes. So like having like a professor who teaches like communications be a part of like I guess we can use the NAACP, for example, just show up to like at least one of our events throughout the semester, just so that we can have like that bonding moment, so that they have like a sense of our community and not just us being students and us just looking at us as students, if that makes sense. So just showing up to our events, not just, people on the camera right here, but like our faculty and our other staff, so that we can just build that community.
Yeah, I know as a faculty advisor for NAACP, I love when I get invited to be a part of you all and see what's going on. I'm going to ask the rest of the students to kind of communicate as well, but I would like to see Adam Meyer chime in, as well as Leanne and Devin, if you guys can kind of chime in from the faculty perspective, and Adam, maybe talk a little bit about what disability services would prefer to see in that type of realm as well. Andrew, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna just add that I think it is a lot better to have a lot of these faculty staff associations when the students actually know that they exist. So not just having them, but having events where the students can go see that these groups exist, having events where these faculty and staff work with students, like Noreen was saying. So just that's all I really wanted to say.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. Dr. Meyer.
I think for me, one of the things that we really work on is how to, especially for working with students with disabilities, which is our primary focus, is how to point out and work to address some of the unconscious bias that a lot of people have toward individuals with disabilities in terms of seeing them as less capable. And so how do we have those conversations? How do we create those experiences where individuals can, I guess, kind of like what's being said here, just need to be present, be engaged in different activities, be engaged in different communities, just to get to better understand where people are coming from.
Nice, I appreciate that. Dr. Roberts?
Hi, yes, I just wanted to weigh in a little bit on what the students were talking about. From my perspective, I believe that we need to reevaluate our student perception of instruction, looking at that a little bit more and seeing how we can incorporate more areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion within those surveys that we also provide. In addition, I believe that we should make this a requirement for all of our courses. There's still some areas in which we're not getting feedback from students, which can ultimately improve the relationship between faculty and students, but we do not evaluate students that are going through independent study, dissertation hours. It's not required for them to do that, but they have faculty interactions. And so there's a lot of things that maybe we will never hear about face to face, but maybe students anonymously will feel comfortable writing that down. But us actually using the results of those evaluations and actually holding faculty members accountable for student experiences in their classroom, and then taking them through steps to actually improve their performance, also enhance their understanding of diversity, equity, inclusion, et cetera, in relationship building with students from diverse backgrounds. So from my perspective, I do love the involvement of faculty also with student organizations, but I also believe that there needs to be training, and there also needs to be better relationships in the classrooms with students, with their projects, with their activities, with their grading, et cetera. And so my thoughts there.
Yeah, and also you can have activities and programs and assessments that kind of channel into diversity and inclusion. You can make assignments kind of work in that realm so that you can include it in that way if you don't feel that you have any other way that you can kind of be inclusive. Dr. Jensen, anything?
Yeah, so really enlightening conversations here. I'm really appreciating and learning a lot from the various comments that are being made at this point in time. And so, you know, in the College of Graduate Studies, for those of you who are not aware, I'm the Associate Dean in the College of Graduate Studies. We are really concerned about our graduate student population and making sure that they have a good experience while they're here at the University of Central Florida. And student-faculty relationships are an integral part of what goes on, and especially as you get to doctoral level, where you develop a really close relationship with your faculty member, your dissertation advisor, and in some cases that they become your really close mentor. They set you off on a path of whether it's an academic career or a professional career. So those types of relationships are really important. And one thing that I've really valued since I've been here at the University of Central Florida, I got here in 2017, is this is an institution that is really good at creating the space that is needed to allow individual units to be creative with how they then implement that space that's been required. And so we're trying in the College of Graduate Studies to create a space where we're recognizing the mentoring relationship that goes on with graduate faculty and graduate students. And so for instance, this year, we're starting a training for all our graduate program directors. So these are individuals that have more of a responsibility over their particular program in terms of dealing with all the students in that relevant program. And we're going to be doing empathy training with them so that they can have more meaningful conversations with their students. Sometimes those conversations are great conversations. You're doing an awesome job, you're publishing, you're doing well in your classrooms. And so other times those conversations are a bit more precarious in terms of some of the messes that grad students get themselves into. But you know, in some of our climate surveys that we've done at the grad level, that's been a concern that students have expressed, that they haven't been able to have really kind of good, healthy communication with their advisors. And sometimes, as we know, that there is a power relationship that goes there. And we want to make sure that students aren't afraid to have a meaningful or hard conversation with their faculty members, as well as faculty members being able to sometimes have hard conversations, but in a positive way. And so we're going to be doing some empathy workshops with our graduate program directors over the course of this fall term.
Excellent. So my last person I want to call on this question is somebody who has her pulse on the student culture and can probably speak into this. And so Dr. Andrews, can you kind of share from your perspective, what do you see as some of the things, because you interconnect with those students. And so what do you hear from them that could be very beneficial in building relationships with faculty?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that our students are looking for is that connection piece. Because that helps to create that sense of belonging, that creates that sense of attachment to the institution, that love of UCF. You know, we have great student leaders on here that love this institution, and they are involved. And Noreen just said they're tired, but they're tired because they love this institution. They want the institution to do better, and so they want some help. They want people to show up and be present. They want faculty and staff members to see them. And in order to see them, that means listening, that means coming to events, that means supporting them through mentoring, that means reviewing the student perception surveys and for departments to be able to make changes to courses and to faculty and to have those trainings, as Dr. Jensen just talked about. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for that holistic sense of belonging from their institution, which is this University of Central Florida.
Let me ask the students really quickly before I move on to the next question. Do you feel that you see yourself in the faculty and staff that are on this campus? Do you feel represented that way? Leah?
I feel represented within a very few of them. Like, for example, I know there's a Black Faculty and Staff Association, but all Black students on this campus can give you the main 5 people that are active. And that's Dr. Edwana Andrews, Mr. Jeremy Jones, Dr. Wayne Jackson, Dr. Jermaine Gam, and Kensington. those are honestly the only Black faculty I even know that are always active in connecting with students. And because of that, it's just like, who else is here for us? We know they're there, but who else is there? So yeah.
Other students. Okay, so I'll move on to the next question then. And I'm going to ask Commander Vargas to kind of answer this one first. So the climate survey kind of saw reasons why students don't report incidents of discrimination or harassment. From your perspective as a police officer, what do you think are some of those reasons that they're not either reporting to you all or maybe not reporting to the university as a whole?
Sorry about that. Thank you for that question. And I just want to say I've really enjoyed this time. I've been able to be part of a lot of these conversations, and this one, hearing from students, is very impactful, and it means a whole lot. And thank you to all the students for speaking your voices and letting us hear you guys, because I think that's so important. You know, I think sometimes, you know, and I could tell you when I was a student here from 2002, 2006, I guess culturally where I came from in Miami, I mean, sometimes you just didn't call the police because you felt like nothing was ever going to get done. And, you know, a lot of our students may come to the campus kind of feeling that same way. So, you know, we want to make it very clear here at UCF that if you say something, we're going to do something. And we are a very big part of this community. We work real hard to really, again, be part of the UCF family, the UCF community. So, I don't know if that fully answered the question, but I think it's just a lot of the fears of you know, maybe them thinking that nothing's going to get done, or, you know, they're going to expose themselves and maybe get in more trouble with the person they complain on, you know, and there's several ways to go about that. So, you know, one of them is the Marcy's Law, so your information won't be released out to the public. But, you know, just know that we're here for you guys.
Excellent. Dr. Muniz, you are head of a mentoring program, or you supervise at the head of a mentoring program in Korea Futuros. What are you hearing from the students, and what do you think are some of the things that may be concerning as to why students, especially Hispanic students, are not reporting?
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes. I would say that from things that we've heard from students, I mean, through Crear Futuros and other organizations, student organizations, not wanting to report, I would, you know, just basically reiterate what Commander Vargas just said about the fear of what will happen when I put myself out there. What's going to happen? Will things get better or will they get worse? Right, and that can manifest in many different ways. Or the feeling that nothing will be done, or am I going to be taken seriously? Will people believe me? I think that happens a lot often with our students of color, that just this notion of exaggeration, right? Sometimes like, well, you know, did that really happen, or you know, are you just all up in your feelings right now? So I think that students might get double, or what's the word, just second guess themselves, and whether or not people will believe them, and they would just rather just write it out, and then, you know, that it will get better. So those are just some things that we've heard, you know, from students.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I can get with that in terms of people saying, am I crazy? Maybe that didn't happen. Or you hear so many different narratives that make you believe that maybe you shouldn't even think about this. You're really kind of, you know, in the isolated silo by yourself, and it's not something that you should really even kind of reflect upon. So Dr. Meyer, what are your thoughts from your perspective?
Yeah, unfortunately, we encounter this a number of times over the course of the semester, especially in relation to students and faculty in the classroom, where students come to us and they feel that they've been discriminated against based on their disability in the classroom for some type of situation. And the common theme that we hear all the time is, I really want to take action. I want to report this somewhere, but I'm also in this class and I'm afraid I'm going to be retaliated against, or my grade is going to be impacted if I take action right now. Right. And they really weigh out the pros and cons of whether or not they want to move forward with their story and with their concerns. And so I think that's another variable here based on the situation that could impact why students choose to not report based on the situation.
Thank you for sharing that. So Dr.
That
Roberts,
is,
you know,
I wanna reiterate that with what Adam said. That is very true. When we get JKRT reports, a lot of them come in anonymous because they want someone to know, but they don't want someone to know it was them for fear of retaliation.
retaliation.
And
Thank you.
that is very real for our students. And
So one of the things I heard, Dr.
change the culture
Andrews,
of that.
one of the things I heard is that maybe if we can create a student panel or student, that's one of the reasons, again, for the advisory council that I'm building, that students will talk to other students before they'll talk to maybe faculty, staff, and administrators. And so do you think that that might be a bridge to them opening up and talking?
You still have grades attached to reporting. And
Yeah.
so as long as you have that dangle of grades,
Mm-hmm.
that is going to hold students back. I mean, I don't know. Students.
Well, that's one of the things I will tell you, that most students think that the evaluations that they put out at the end of the semester is something that the faculty see right away, and it's not. They typically don't see it until after not even typically, they do not see it until after the grades have been posted. And so, so that is something that we need to be better at, maybe sharing with the students how that is really taken into effect. And we also have to let these students know through our actions that when they report these things, it's not going to be isolated. We're not going to sit as a faculty or staff or administration and allow you to be retaliated against. And so I think it's really important to kind of figure out how we can send this message and also create a culture where these types of feelings do not come up first, right? The action comes up first, and we do the right thing, and we make the community much safer and much better place for everyone. Dr. Roberts.
I'll just say this very quickly. Many of our students also are first time in college or have been there at some point where they're used to having someone else be their voice and speak for them because they were dependents, right? And so now they're in a new arena where they have to find themselves, their voices, and have to speak up for themselves. And I think that we as faculty and staff need to really be cognizant of that and understanding of where they are in their life, and in some cases be their voices. And many times we're always looking about creating spaces, but we ourselves need to be a space that is safe for students to kind of confide in, to talk to, and to share. Sometimes our students have been screaming at us for years that this is a problem, this is what's going on, but are we really hearing them? Are we really listening to them? As Dominic was saying previously. So I think when we get some information, we have to be honest with them up front and say, you might be sharing something with me where I may have to say something. I have to report it, because it could be another student, another problem. And so I think there is an accountability on us as faculty and staff as well to say something. Many of us have heard things for many years and have never reported anything and wondering why we're still seeing these patterns. And so that's what I also wanted to share. And training, of course, is needed for all of us to know how to handle those difficult situations.
Well, just going back to the surveys themselves, we saw that, right? We saw that people did not necessarily know where to report, even as faculty, staff, or students. And we have to find a much clearer pattern or pathway for that to happen. What I'd like to do is ask the students. You heard from the faculty and staff who are on this panel right now. What are your thoughts? What do you think about that? Leah?
As a student who has experienced both discrimination and harassment, the reason I don't report is because a lot of times I get asked for evidence, and many students only have the memory. So because of that, we're not really believed, and that makes it even harder when we go to UCF PD or someone and we're asked for evidence when it's like, there it goes. Because all I really have is that it happened to me, and I don't have those screenshots or anything else.
Right, so it's hard for people, you feel that they don't believe you, or it's hard to have them believe you because you don't have anything but your actual feelings and the things that you are, you're dealing with. I thought I saw Edgar's mic come off, or Stephanie, I know that you wanted to speak. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with what Dr. Leanne Roberts was saying. When I first came here at UCF, I'm originally from Miami, and it was definitely a culture shock when I came here. I wasn't very used to the area, so I think kind of reaching out to those first time in college students, those freshmen who don't know anything about the area, especially since, if they're coming from a different city or a different state, just making sure to reaching out to them and just make sure that they're feeling included. Because definitely I was kind of going through a rough time my first month here at UCF, and I was lucky enough to find my home here with the things that I got involved with. So I think definitely just reaching out to these students and giving them opportunities to get involved as well and make sure that their voices are heard is very important.
Excellent, excellent. Edgar.
I also agree with Dr. Andrews, how she was saying that for the most part, you're afraid of the grades being a part of it. And especially if you're on a full ride, if you're on Bright Futures, if you're on anything where you don't have the funds to pay for college, and you know that one little thing, if it damages your grade, you're automatically going to lose those funds to stay in college. Sometimes you rather just not say anything. And it's sad to know that that's the way we think. But I feel like it's definitely the culture that goes around, and we have to be able to fix that and let the students know that their voice is allowed to be heard.
Right, right. Dominic, you were going to say something?
Yeah, just to piggyback off of what Commander Vargas and Leah said, I think it was being on campus and like sitting in a classroom where there's like rarely anyone who looks like me sometimes, and having that little, like, just needing that reassurance that you guys will do something. So when he said earlier that like you guys are going to do something about it, just hearing that from you like made me feel a little bit more at ease, because now I know that you hear me out. And if I come to you with a concern, you're going to do something about it. So I think a lot of us don't really know that, because looking at the population of UCF, it's like over 60,000 students, and only 6,000 of us are like who identifies Black. So when we look at the bigger picture, well, are they really going to listen to me, or are they not going to listen to me? So just hearing Commander Vargas, I appreciated that, honestly. So just relaying that on to my peers would be like amazing. So
thank you, Dominic. I appreciate it. It truly means a lot that you said that, and please, I do mean that full-heartedly. We will do something. You know, we're not going to just sit back with our arms crossed and allow these things to campus. Like I like to say, not on my campus. It's not going to happen.
See, I think Dominic's from Miami, so I think so. I don't know if this is really him being honest with you right now, and you taking all this glory right now because it's messing with you.
And just real quickly, I'm sorry you felt that way, and you know, if there was something that happened in the past, I would love to discuss offline. But just know, you know, our job, we will always take a report. You know, we'll never turn you away. You know, but you know, if a crime did occur, we still have to meet the elements of the crime. We still have to work with evidentiary value. We have to still present the case to the state attorney. So, you know, when we ask for, you know, evidence, it's whatever you have. It may be nothing, right? And we could build a case from that. You know, we could put out subpoenas. We could do a ton of work on the back end. You know, of course.
And I would guess too that the student doesn't recognize that you might have gotten that same type of response from someone else, or you got a case at building because of other students who may have said something, and then that makes it that much more helpful to you being able to do something with that work.
Correct. We're just trying to put a great case for the victim in that case, or the student, whoever it is. So another thing, Dominic, too, we do ride-along. So if you ever want to do a ride-along, we'd love to have all you guys.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. There you go. So one of the things that we kind of have found out from the survey is that the least welcomed person on this campus may be undocumented. And so I want to talk with Edgar and Dr. Andrews. Can you kind of talk about that? What are we doing for Dreamers on this campus, and how can we be better equipped or better suited for supporting them in their endeavors?
Thank you. And I'd like to say this is from my personal experience here at UCF. I don't know if this qualifies for everyone, but it definitely, I feel like UCF promotes and says that we are very inclusive and wanting Dreamers and DACA students. I'm a DACA recipient, and you see it all the time, but then there's no action. There's no action at all from UCF. If you look at the webpage for DACA students, there's just one blank page with like a link, and that's it. When you go ask for financial aid to see if they have anything, they send the regular thing. They give you like freshman year where there's A2O scholarships. Besides that, there's nothing else. I came in having to do my own research from what I learned from other universities and looking for those same resources at UCF. Like one of the main things is like the tuition waiver. That covers, because when I apply for classes, it comes out as out-of-state tuition, and then I have to go to an office and get a tuition waiver to cover like the out-of-state, in-state. Besides that, I always feel like there isn't enough acceptance or wanting to say we're here to help you. You kind of have to kind of like squeeze in yourself into another organization or club, but there isn't anything that reaches out to you specifically. And I feel like that makes you feel left out and not wanted at the university.
Yeah. And I would say, I mean, Edgar, you know, is a great person who just shared with you his struggles. And so multiply his struggles against the other DACA students that we do have. And so one of the main things that we need to figure out how to do as an institution is to be able to provide resources. And so we're limited on providing resources based on state statute, based on this, based on that. And so we have all these barriers that prevent us from being able to help our DACA students who want to earn an education. We have all these barriers that prevent them from that. And so we really need to sit down and have some conversations and look at how can we make their dreams possible. Because they're coming to us and they want to be a part of our community. They are a part of our community. And so, you know, President Cartwright started us out by saying we want to create an environment where all are welcome. Our DACA students are a group of students that should be welcome and should feel welcome.
Yes, most definitely. Anyone else would like to weigh in on this? All right, so I have a very, very serious question I want to ask next, and it really goes in line with the protests and the violence that we're seeing across the country. Commander Vargas, maybe you can start off this conversation, but you know, even last week, there's been just horrendous things that are happening in communities, especially for those who are Black and brown. And there's a heightened call for us at UCF anyway, to be more transparent and to kind of figure out how we can build communities and everything else along those lines. What are we doing at UCF? You know, from the police perspective, what are we doing to build community? And from you students, what do you need to see from all of us, not just the police department, but what do you need to see from all of us with regards to building this community? And what would you like to see us do or say or be a part of when we know that there are Black lives that are dying at the hands of others every day? And not just Black lives. You know, we had 2 gentlemen who lost their lives in Kenosha just recently because they were in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. So what do we need to see happen on this campus to feel safe and to move forward with regards to some of the things that we're seeing, this unrest that's happening across the nation?
Dr. Butler, thank you for that question. And certainly this has been a very, very difficult time. And I want to just talk a little bit about what UCF does for transparency, some of our policies and the practices that we're currently working on. First, you know, our main focus here at UCF PD is really to keep our community safe. And we do believe in that power of transparency. So with that, we launched a brand new website, and I invite everyone to visit it. It's ucf.edu, safety, police, transparency. And in there, we talk about our policies, and we put our policies right there in the open. We want you to see our policies. We invite you to get the direct link to our policies. It tells you all of the initiatives that we're working on. And I'll touch a little bit about those here in a bit. So transparency is really big, and that's Chief Metzger's mission to us is to always do the right thing. We work tirelessly, we really do, to build the trust with the community. Me personally, I love my community. I love being out there with you guys, students, faculty, staff. I really do. Those who see me interact know that I'll take the time to sit down and listen to your story. You know, how did you get here? You know, everyone has a story, and I love listening to those. And I really do empower all of our police officers to do the same thing, is get out there, get out of your police cars and build a true, lasting, fundamental relationship with our community. So again, that really goes back to Chief Metzger's, you know, messages to always do the right thing. Right. We really like to actively listen and learn and grow alongside with our community. We may not have the answers to everything all the time. I know that, and but we want to grow alongside our community. Recently, we revived and implemented the 8 Can't Wait recommendations for reducing police use of force as part of our renewed commitment to de-escalation. You know, we're happy to announce that we implemented them, but we've been working on that for years. We just didn't know it didn't have an official name, didn't have an official title. Our response to resistance policy was just updated this last June. And we've had additional guidance on, duty to intervene, right? So if one of our police officers is doing something, sometimes we didn't have that guidance or really that, what do we do next, right? How do we intervene? So we've received some really great training, cutting edge stuff. The chief just kicked up his Chief Advisory Council, which includes like a diverse voice of students, faculty, and parents. So it's really good. It's a panel very similar to this where we could all just talk and listen to one another.
Right.
Go ahead, Dr. Butler.
No, I was just saying right to what you just shared.
Oh, gotcha. And really, like I told you, it's so important to me, and I push this to all my guys all the time, is get out there, right? So I'm a proud member of La FASA. And, we have some of our officers that are part of the BFSA. So really, we just need to get out there and be part of the community, right? It's got to be sincere. It's got to be genuine. It can't be a checkbox, right? We really got to be part of it. So, I thank the students for the times and the great conversations and allowing us to be part of your world. I mean, this is all about you. I remember.
Well, I think the thing I would like to share about your experience too, though, is you were a former student here at UCF who then moved forward in this as your career options. And so I think that that's something that's necessary. The people need to see the human side of that, right? I was here, I'm a knight. Just because I'm wearing this uniform doesn't put me into another sphere. I'm here with you and for you. So I appreciate that, you can share that part of your story as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The
Thank
students,
you.
No worries. The students, what do you need from the police department and or from us as a university to help you feel that this is your space? I'm a teacher by trade, so I can call on any one of you. All right, Dominic, I see you. Go.
I say continuing to have these conversations. I always say to myself, whenever I see the Black Lives Matter movement or like racism and all these things going on, I always say it's so alive and like relevant now, because when it comes to talking about these things, people get really uncomfortable and no one wants to talk about racism or Black Lives Matter, especially in like a class setting. Like everyone starts to look around, no one's comfortable. So having these open conversations, the dialogue, and just creating it so that we can all just like figure out like where everyone's like thought processes are and just relating to them. So this is perfect, and continuing this on campus in some form or format. So
I know how I feel about Black Lives Matter, and especially when people say, well, all lives matter, right? So I just want to hear somebody's perspective. When you hear someone say all lives matter with regards to responding to the Black Lives Matter movement, and Lee, I saw you moving towards your mic, I think, to unmute it. So maybe you can handle this one first. What thoughts come up for you when you hear the all lives matter when regards to all the stuff that's happening in the Black community today?
All lives matter, but they don't, because right now Black lives don't matter to the world. So really that statement is false. I don't like hearing all lives matter because of where it came from. It did come from in retaliation to Black Lives Matter. That's my personal opinion on that.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. Any others?
One of the best examples, I heard one of my friends explaining to other friends about how to view the Black Lives Matter is there's a post that says, if there's two houses on fire and one of the homes is on fire, we should go put out the fire. We know that all the houses matter, but we have to worry about the house that's being hurt at the moment, because you can't protect all the homes if you're not protecting that one home that's on fire at that moment. Right. And that was one of the best examples I saw when it came to explaining to people to understand the Black Lives Matter movement.
See a lot of head nods. Any other responses to that from the students? I'll give you 2 seconds. All right, so we'll move on. And so I think that it's important for us to kind of also recognize that in order for us to move forward, we need to understand the value of mentoring and what mentoring can do for the community as a whole. So how do you experience mentoring on this campus? You all, especially those of you in leadership roles, and those of you who are not in leadership roles, what types of mentoring experiences have you had? And how can we as a community be supportive of your needs, not just in the classroom, but in terms of your own, I guess, life experiences and moving forward in life? Go ahead, Leah.
I'll start this off first. Personally, I've been a mentor since my sophomore year of high school. I value it a lot because I'm an only child with divorced parents. I'm very independent. I never really liked talking to anybody about what's going on with me until I had to learn the hard way, and it hit me in the face. I came to college, I gained multiple college mentors, even from the professional standpoint, and it's helped me grow a lot, just having someone you can talk to on that aspect and know that they'll actually be there for you. It goes a very long way for students.
Excellent. Anyone else? Edgar.
I can definitely agree with Leah on that, because coming to UCF, when I first got my peer mentor here at UCF, it made me feel welcome. It led me to connections, to know more people. Then I got professional mentors, and it has grown me as a person completely. And I definitely think that's when I did peer mentoring for Access this summer, I got to give back some of what I was given, and it felt great. It definitely, you could see the difference in the students throughout the weeks, seeing the feeling of being part of the UCF Knight family. I definitely think it's very important, and I think that's something that UCF needs to work more on. I know right now with like COVID, this is the perfect moment to be able to change the way that mentoring is set up at UCF in order for us to reach out to more students. I feel like sometimes we don't have enough funds for that, but it's something that I feel like it definitely makes a difference in our lives.
Definitely. Go ahead, Steph.
I think mentorship programs are one of the most important things we have in this institution. I was able to be both a mentee and a mentor, and I've just learned so much from both of those experiences. I've gained so much. I've found essentially my family here at UCF because of it. And I think, having these programs is just very essential to not only, build leadership skills or gain connections, but it paves the way for having those lifelong friendships until after college.
Definitely. So I'm gonna say, okay, Andrew, go.
I was just gonna say that LGBTQ+ services actually has a whole program called the Alliance Mentorship Program that pairs LGBTQ+ students with mentors in the LGBT+ community on campus, so faculty and staff. And it's a really amazing way to connect with a staff member who, identifies with the community that you are a part of. So for LGBT, that's really great.
Definitely. And it's also, I think, mentorship and engaging in these different types of opportunities helps to kind of open up your space, right? And it helps you see things and people from different perspectives. So we're not just always channeling ourselves just towards the things that we think are just part of our own intersectionality, right? We're able to explore that and see what's happening in the lives of other individuals in terms of trying to be inclusive. And so my last question to you all deals with that, right? It deals with us being inclusive, right? And what that means. What actions would you like to see us take that we haven't talked about today that might be helpful? And this is for everybody. We're getting ready to close out. We're getting close to the 5 o'clock hour. And so what would you like to see that may not have happened in terms of inclusivity and what we can be doing better here at UCF? I love these pregnant pauses. Yes, Dr. Jensen.
So for those that know me and work around me a lot, they know I love data and I love numbers and I pay attention to a lot of those numbers. So the grad level is kind of an interesting part. So this is the second year and the data that I've been able to pull that underrepresented minorities, plus our international students, which bring a great diversity of population to our graduate community here, now make 52% of our overall graduate student population, which is 10,000 students. And then white students make up 48%. So now our underrepresented minorities and our international students are the more dominant population that we have here at UCF. So that's really, really cool. Now, part of being an inclusive institution is that, okay, so we're letting all these people in, we're providing an opportunity for them to have an education. Are they being successful? That would make us an inclusive place, because when they can come here, they can be successful in that environment. So I looked at the numbers over the past 5 years. So if you consider, I'll just take a real generic number, 38% of our underrepresented minorities make up our overall graduate population. Over the past 5 years, every year, the number of graduate degrees awarded were 38% for underrepresented minorities. So that means all those people that are coming in as underrepresented minorities are being successful in their academic efforts and then being awarded the degree at the end. So to me, that's a really good signal that the university has a lot of infrastructures in place to support the needs of our graduate students when they're here, both our diverse students, our international students, and our white students as well, so that they can reach their academic goals and their dreams that they have for themselves.
Yes. Other thoughts? Dr. Andrews, you wanted to say something? No? Okay. Leah? And I'll come to you next, Dr. Meyer.
I would like to see more departments and offices besides social justice and advocacy, multicultural student center, and the multicultural academic support services doing multicultural events. I would love to see other departments, offices, and colleges. And it can be whether just like contacting a representative from a student organization to get input on how to increase inclusion within this office or increase diversity at events, things like that, to get that one-on-one contact to show students that we really want to be an inclusive campus, because I know UCF has the goal of becoming a minority serving institute, but that goal needs to be more than just the numbers. It needs to be shown in the action.
Amen. I appreciate that. Dr. Meyer.
One of the things that I'd really like to see is us continue to work on this idea around disability and supporting more inclusion for people with disabilities. Our culture, while we're doing a lot of great things, we still have this idea of ableism on our campus, as it is nationally, and ableism is the notion that people without disabilities are superior to people with disabilities. And I see a lot of things where we could be more inclusive. For example, with more of our virtual classes right now, we have our deaf and hard of hearing community. A number of these students are participating in classes where faculty are showing content such as video and other auditory or audio content that's not accessible to them when they're participating in the class in real time. So we work hard to make that accessible, but we're not always able to do that in real time. And so that's creating a huge barrier for those individuals. So there are other things along those lines that I hope that we can do a better job in the years to come.
Nice. Appreciate you sharing that. Dominic, I thought I saw you getting ready to say something. No? Okay. Andrew, anything? Stephanie, anything? Edgar.
One last thing, I wanted to agree with something Leah had said. I definitely think that we need to be able to make more of a connection between the offices that are already involved to other colleges, and make sure that everyone's being a part of and have a connection and of some sort in order to get the students to the right resources that they need. I think that's something that we don't work with as much. So
excellent, excellent. Thank you. Dr. Muniz, anything?
Yes, I thank you. I would say I thought about what Leah mentioned, and I am reflecting on our principles as a Hispanic serving institution, right? And we value intentionality, intersectionality, and inclusivity. So for me, when I think of being inclusive, I automatically think about intentionality and intersectionality. So we must be intentional about reaching out to our student groups and providing space. It is okay for us to talk about our Black student experiences. It is okay for us to talk about our Asian students. It is okay for us to talk about our DACA students, our Latino students, etc. It is okay for us to create spaces where we are intentional about focusing on the lived experiences and the needs of respective communities. And then also provide the space to see how those experiences overlap right? The intersectionality of things and how they come together, because we all identify in so many different ways. And so for me, it goes hand in hand when we talk about inclusion.
Excellent. And in terms of inclusion, can you tell us a little bit about Hispanic Serving Week?
Thank you, thank you. So we're very excited. UCF will be joining the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities and HSIs across the country in celebration of National HSIs Week, which is the week of September the 14th. Information has already started to roll out, and everyone is invited. You know, you're all invited to participate in the celebration. We have a kickoff event, a book club, and also an opportunity for students. Let me highlight that. Hablando HSI on Friday, September the 18th. I want to know what your questions are. I'll be facilitating the conversation. Please let me know what your questions are, what ideas you have, and what you would like to see for us as a Hispanic serving institution and a minority serving institution. Thanks.
So I'm going to next, Commander Vargas, Dr. Roberts, Noreen, Edwana, anything you all want to share before we close out?
I want to follow up with what Dr. Muniz said about having the spaces for people to share their lived experience. And understand that just because a program is dealing with a Black identity or Hispanic identity does not mean that everyone is not welcome. And so part of changing the culture of the institution is to ensure that others come into the space seeking to learn, seeking to have conversations such as this.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think that's really important, because one of the things that we need to recognize in most communities of color is community oriented. That's our thing. We want you to come in and be a part of the experience. And so anything else from any other panelists right now before we transition to close? Okay, well, I'd like to thank you all, first of all, for being a part of these discussions. And it's been a great joy to have been leading some of these conversations and to have the survey behind us. And I can say very, very assuredly that now that the survey is behind us, we're really moving towards that action. That's why we're here and putting ourselves out here in this manner. Because right now, I know that I can speak for, and I think I can speak for, let me say, the president and the provost, in that we are going to move towards action and we're going to get some things done. We really want to change this community to be one that everybody feels welcome and included. And so be on the lookout for that. I will share with you that there'll be information forthcoming. Stephanie and I and some of the students who are part of my leadership council are working on the Odyssey Ambassador Program. And so the applications will be available soon. And we're going to really work towards doing that and getting that off the ground. The other thing that I would like to share with you is that in the works is a conversation with me with various leaders and students across campus. There'll be hour talks where you can talk about the things that are on your mind, and we can kind of help that. It'll be more like a YouTube type of a situation, but it will be something that will be available to the community. We'll be hearing from those voices who are doing diversity and inclusion work, and really having an opportunity to see what we're doing on this campus and to feed into that and to hear everybody's narrative moving forward. So we're looking forward to getting that off the ground soon as well. We want to continue to have these types of town halls. I heard you, Dominic, when you said that these types of conversations help to kind of spread the word and to keep us from being kind of in our silos. We get to hear each other's voices. And so it becomes really important for you all to kind of, and I said this before, and I continue to say this, we need to work together. You know, we have to figure out what each other's strengths are, and because our strengths are going to be what's going to help to dismantle this systemic racism that's here. And we all have to come to it with that in mind. I am never going to be a person who's going to discount what a student can do or what another administrator can do if we're all working towards the same goal. And that is to kind of make sure that we all are helping each other to be accountable and welcomed on this campus. So thank you for your time. The surveys are on our website. So if you want to go into a deeper dive and to figure out what's in there, please go and do that. And also just continue to reach out to us and to communicate with us. And we will do all that we can to make sure that those things that are happening for you. And I know that one of the things is that people have reached out now because of these opportunities, and we're doing our best to answer your needs and your questions. If there are any questions that you still have, please reach out to me at skbutler@ucf.edu, and we'll be sure to kind of respond to you in kind. And so thank you all. I hope you all have a blessed day, and that you do what you need to do to kind of get in a right state of mind and enjoy whatever work that you got next, whether it's homework or driving home or doing something, but go and enjoy yourself in this day. All right. Thank you so much.